Boom! Hey, how you doing? I'm Thundercloud, here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. Washing away the garbage, leaving rainbows after the rains. Don't worry about the rains. After the rains and the rainbows, everything's clean, and so the story goes. It's Chillin Tuesday, here on the 30th of January 2024. Yes, the weather, well, don't worry about it. It's going to rain on everyone. The wind blows on you. Sometimes blows in your face, sometimes it blows in your back. Sometimes it just sprinkles, sometimes there's no rain for a really long time and there's a drought. And then later on, there's a lot of rain and there's a flood. Don't live next to a river if it's going to flood. That's good advice. All right. Tonight, what have we got for you? Well, I've got some really special stuff tonight. A poem to accompany this amazing painting next to me. Wow. We've got, we got something from a man called Mark O'Connor, a great environmentalist poet, Carl Sandberg, poetry for young people, and this is an American poet of all things, so we're going way the other side of the world to America. We've got some stuff from Duncan Williams, yes, the famous Australian bush poet, as well as Duncan Williams. I've got some stuff from Terry Dingwall, and to round off the night, I think I'll finish off the night with the Rosemary Dobson stuff here, and perhaps the Rape of Europa. So we'll start with the children's stuff, and by the end of the night, we could be getting X-rated. Although, mind you, the Rape of Europa is a story about how Zeus turned himself into a bull and tricked Europa, and she got on him and rode off, and he got another wife. Lucky Zeus. All right. Now, where am I starting exactly? Well, I told you the weather already. I'm starting with this fantastic image beside me, Madame Acacia. Now, there's a story with this, and it goes something like this. This particular painting here was painted by a now deceased First Nations artist, he was Aboriginal Australian, and named Brian Irving. The Aboriginal part of him was Bundjalung. This was painted in 2008, and of course it was sold and hung around here with someone in Gyra. Now, during the last week, we've had the Lamb and Potato Festival. And every year they have an art show. And I had some of mine in there, and I walked in there towards the end of the festival, and I saw this for sale. And I'm like, wow, look at that. That's amazing. Wow. It really is. There's everything from Madame Acacia with the beautiful feminine mane around her like a lion, these lovely two rainbow serpents down either side, the female forms here, up here you've got the sugar glider there, and down here and there as well. As many other elements that once you look into it, and the dot work on it is just exquisite and very fine. So this was when Brian was really in his finest, doing his finest work. It's a beautiful thing. Anyway, I bring it home after I bought it. On the back of the canvas, I see this piece cardboard that says Vickeress, and it's facing that way, so I can't read that there's something here. Vickeress, what does that mean? Anyway, I turn it over, I pull it out, turn it over today, and I find there's a poem here by Ron Vickeress. Now, Ron Vickeress is still alive. He's one of our great war veterans from World War II, and he's living in Armidale, but he worked up here in Guyra as a teacher, I think, and he worked in Armidale at the university and wrote a number of historical books and poetry about Australia and the war, etc. And this is just one that has just popped off the back of this brilliant painting by Brian Irving and Madame Acacia to go with this particular painting. The first whiff of spring finds Madame Acacia at her toilette. Fresh from her winter bed, she powders herself all over, as all belles of old do, takes from her wardrobe her gold-spangled gown, drops it over her head, covering her grey-green shift, shivers in anticipation, sending showers of yellow powder over her drab companions, crowns herself with her spring tiara, and boldly awaits the salute of the morning sunshine. Madame Acacia, known by the unsophisticated as Miss Wattle, still draws fond glances despite her advancing years. May she ever do so, for I fear we have placed her future in jeopardy. Placed her future in jeopardy, Ron Vickeress. All right, what a wonderful, wonderful poem that is. And to go with a magnificent painting of Brian Irving. All right, let's move on now. Now, all of these books here that I read out of every week come from our Australian Poetry Library and archive there. Not only do we have Australian stuff, but we have international poetry as well. And one of the books that I've got is an international one, and it's Carl Sandberg, a poet born in 1878. So about 11 years after Mr. Henry Lawson up there was born. 11 years after he was born. And I'm going to be reading a few of Carl Sandberg's poems from this book, Carl Sandberg, Poetry for Young People. The first one, Little Girl, Be Careful What You Say, by Carl Sandberg. Little girl, be careful what you say when you make talk with words. For words are made of syllables, and syllables, child, are made of air. And air is so thin, air is the breath of God. Air is finer than fire or mist, finer than water or moonlight, finer than spider webs in the moon, finer than water flowers in the morning. And words are strong too, stronger than rocks or steel, stronger than potatoes, corn, fish, cattle, and soft too, soft as little pigeon eggs, soft as the music of hummingbird wings. So, little girl, when you speak greetings, when you tell jokes, make wishes or prayers, Be careful, be careless, be careful, be what you wish to be. Wow, what a great poem that one is, hey? Sandberg, little girl, be careful what you say. This next one by Sandberg, landscape. See the trees lean to the wind's way of learning. See the dirt of the hills shape to the water's way of learning. See the lift of it all go to the biggest wind and the strongest water want it. Boxes and bags. The bigger the box, the more it holds. Empty boxes hold the same as empty heads. Enough small empty boxes thrown into a big empty box fill it full. A half empty box says, put more in. A big enough box could hold the world. Elephants need big boxes to hold a dozen elephant handkerchiefs. Fleas fold little handkerchiefs and fix them nice and neat in flea handkerchief boxes. Bags lean against each other and boxes stand independent. Boxes are square with corners and less round with circles. Box can be piled on box till the whole works comes tumbling. Pile box on box and the bottom box says, if you will kindly take notice, you will see it all rests on me. Pile box on box and the top one says, who falls farthest, if or when we fall, I ask you. Box people go looking for boxes and bag people go looking for bags. Boxes and Bags by Sandberg. Sandberg. Now, one of the awesome things that we have here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame, and I did mention it a moment ago, and it's not these mugs. However, they are available here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. And they're also available on our website, on the store tab on our website, under australianpoetryhalloffame.com.au, as well as these fantastic mugs. There's a whole range of other mugs there, and t-shirts, hoodies, Bush Poet hoodies with some beautiful gum leaves on the front. Check it out, australianpoetryhalloffame.com.au/store for the best merchandise that supports Australian poetry. Cheers. All right, that's an ad. Next thing, as well as the merchandise there, we've got slam poetry stickers, we've got hoodies, sweatshirts, we've got a whole bunch of stuff. Check out the website anyway. There's also our Etsy store too. But with that, I've got a book here sent to us all the way from Chrissy. Yes, Chrissy in Ballarat. Beautiful Chrissy. Thank you, Chrissy. This is Mark O'Connor's book, The Great Forest. This one here was published in, I think it was not 1989. And that was my second year of uni, actually. My first year of uni was studying a Bachelor of Science in Australian Environmental Studies with a major in environmental pollution and health and environmental policy and economics. And so, yeah, this guy was writing about that time then I was studying there at Griffith Uni in Brisbane. Now, Mark O'Connor is still alive, he's 78, and this is the one that Chrissy's found and sent to us all the way from Ballarat. So big shout out to Chrissy, big thank you for your donation to the Australian Poetry Film Contest, because Chrissy is not only a supporter of the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame here, but she's also been a patron and supporter of film in Australia, in Victoria and around. So she's really just shone, and thank you very much, Chrissy, for all that you've done for the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. So if you'd like to donate to the GoFundMe campaign to raise funds for the prizes for the Australian Poetry Film Contest, which you can find out more in the links underneath in the description. There's the GoFundMe there, and I'm raising funds to be able to give decent prizes in the Australian Poetry Film Contest, which has this year, it's our second year, and we've got 3 categories: Best Australian Poetry Film, Best Australian Bush Poetry Film, and Best Student Bush Poetry Film. We've already got some entries, so check it out there, filmfreeway.com/Australian Poetry Film Contest. And then also in the description you can find the link there, and you can also find the link to the GoFundMe to donate to the pool of funds that goes towards the prize for the filmmakers, which would be really appreciated by the filmmakers, I know, and it will also encourage more filmmakers to enter the contest. So thank you in advance, and here we go. This is the book that Chrissy sent all the way from Ballarat for the Australian Poetry Archive and Library over there, and she's even marked the poem that she wants me to read with this lovely piece of fern or bracken by the looks of it, which is a kind of a fern, and it's called In a Cloud. Now, and I think it's really, really relevant because at the moment here in eastern Australia, we've got clouds all up and down the east coast. We've got cyclones and floods around Brisbane, and Lismore and whatever. And I drove all the way down there to Urunga via Dorrigo yesterday and Ballinjan, and it was pretty much misty and cloudy all the way, just as Thundercloud loves with my friend Sky. We went together, and it was what a beautiful day, and I would recommend Ballinjan, Dorrigo to anyone who wants to check it out. Check out some wonderful rainforest and cool places. Anyway, let's read Mark O'Connor's In a Cloud. For 3 days we've lived inside a cloud, watching a fog squeeze itself into droplets. Sometimes it lowered and lifted around us, white heights and dull grey, and once wispy white blue. Myrtle bushes were wet feathered dusters that soaked us at the touch. The 3rd day, from the high white country with no shadows, descending the cliff, I walked down into the cloud, where by torchlight the trees were green-black. The stream spilled water from a flute-edged rim. Once its bank down half a hill, star flowers in the never-rained overhangs pulled water from the yielding air. The heath's bell sprays hung heavily, till an extra drop made an avalanche. That landing cleared the branch below. Young currawongs whined hard for grubs their parents couldn't find. Pointless, I turned upward through the white safety net of the fog. That afternoon on slippery rungs I climbed back 1,000 feet to a whiter shade of fog, listening to eagles call through the white and the grounded crows complaining from the heights, waiting for the vast airship to move on, trailing broad wisps from our steep etched valley. Yeah, what a beautiful imagery, and I'm not sure if you've ever been in the mountains in the fog, but I have, and that is a beautiful image of it by Mark O'Connor from this book, The Great Forest, published by Hale and Iremonger in 1989. Moving right along. What other announcements have I got for you? Well, last week on Tuesday, as you may know, I was down in Tamworth for the Tamworth Country Music Festival and the Frank Daniel competition, and I got through into the final of the Frank Daniel competition on Friday, and last week we had Terry Dingwall here from that competition on Tuesday, and I'm going to be reading out some of his poetry later on. But one of the other competitors, Duncan Williams, who was one of the first people to send me one of his books for the Australian Poetry Library when I very first got here. Well, I went down and he was in the final, and he's given me a great huge box of poetry books that he's collected that he figured it might as well be here in a place where they're preserved and will be read. So a big shout out and thank you to Duncan Williams, and I'm going to be reading some of Duncan's stuff in the moment. But what I do want to do is to announce who were the winners of the Frank Daniel walk-up poetry competition. So out of that, there was the competitors. There was Lance Lawrence, Rob Cummins, Joey Reedy and Duncan Williams. Then number 5, myself. Fourth was Donna McQueen. Third was David Melville. Number 2 was Michael the Living Poet, or Michael Jones. And number 1 was a young lady, Bianca Reedy, who I think is only 12 or 13, who did a very funny poem of someone else's. It was so well delivered. So a huge shout out and congratulations to Bianca Reedy on winning the Frank Daniel walk-up competition there in Tamworth. And also a big thank you to Ray Essery for organising it, and Tom McElveen, Sue Ashton, and all the other poets who were there. So thank you very much for keeping the poetry alive in Australia. Now, coming up, we've got down there in Orange at the end of February is the Banjo Patterson Australian Poetry Competition, and entries close for that on the 12th of February. So if you've got an original Australian poem that you've written yourself and you want to perform it, that's your chance to go in that particular competition. You've got, 12, 13 days to enter it. As well as that, what else is happening? Well, I'm going to get on and read some poetry for you so you don't lose interest. And here we go. Duncan Williams poetry. I'm going to have a sip of my peppermint tea in my Australian Poetry Hall of Fame mug. Yummy yummo. So yeah, Duncan Williams, what an accomplished poet, I must say. This was from the International Poetry Library, published by Noble House. Oh no, this is the Theatre of the Mind, published by Noble House Poetry Division in London and Paris in, I think 2000. I did read that earlier, 2004. But I've lost it now. Anyway, Duncan Williams' poem here, Old Bushman's Boots. So Duncan was born in 1969 in Tamworth. He began writing poetry over 10 years ago, so that was, when was that, in the 90s. Poetry is an everyday ongoing pleasure of my life. Old Bushman Boots is a favourite poem of mine, and it's always been a popular poem to perform. I feel honoured to have this poem published in this publication. Yeah, great. Thank you. Here we go. Old Bushman's Boots. My riding boots are leaning in the cupboard where they stay. The heels are worn to one side, but I'll fix them up someday. They were made by R.M. Williams. I can feel them on my feet, with the weight upon my stirrups in the comfort of my seat. The style of them is Bushman, and yes, they were made to last, worn by those old stockmen and the drovers of the past. Those men that lived on horses, they lived hard and rather tough, and depended on good leather. Their type of work was tough. These boots were worn by legends back when the West was one. Leather dressing helped them to soften them from the harsh Australian sun. These boots were soaked in water, dried on to shape the feet, and worn around the stock camps near the campfire's glowing heat. These boots were worn in cities and were made there just the same, and the city folks and bushies wore the R.M. Williams name. These boots of mine are treasures, and I wear them with respect, with the name of R.M. Williams at 5 Percy Street, Prospect. Nice poem, that one. Thank you, Duncan. We've got another one here from Duncan now. Surrender to the Moon. This is this book that he's published in. This is published by the International Poetry Library at poetry.com. It's another international anthology. And this is tribute to our pioneers. And it was written at the Gundagai Monument in 1995. A tribute to our pioneers by Duncan Williams. A tribute to our pioneers from the days gone by. A tribute to our pioneers not far from Gundagai. Down near the Murrumbidgee, you'll see the monument stone. The dog sits on the tucker box. He sits proudly there alone. Yes, and also at Snake Gully is Dad and Dave's sculpture too. It's nice to keep our heritage, and it's there for me and you. A tribute to our pioneers from the days gone by. A tribute to our pioneers not far from Gundagai. Duncan Williams. Absolutely. A tribute to all. Now this next one by Duncan Williams is called Drew, as in Andrew. Drew. I met him at the showgrounds In around October 95, a Cobra hat and Wrangler jeans, looked so fit and well alive. Where he spoke about life at the top end. He worked on a Kimberley run, men and life in stock camps, and bull riding that he'd done. The down-to-earth life of a stockman, the vision of the far distant track. He reminded me only of myself in the distant outback. My heroes have always been cowboys. Was the song that Drew played to me. We camped near the shoot yards at Orange, singing song, telling bush poetry. Duncan Williams, Drew. Lovely poem, that one. All right, well, thank you very much, Duncan, for your very kind donation of that huge box of poetry books. That's amazing. And your poetry is also wonderful. Thank you. I really enjoyed that. Next. Okay, what have we got happening here? On the 6th of April, which is a Saturday, it's the day after Good Friday, it's Easter. We've got Fiore Musicale coming back here to sing. The Armadale Chamber Choir are going to fill this place with their beautiful voices once again. Aren't we lucky? So I'll let you know when tickets are available, but keep it in your diary. Put it in your diary now, 6th of April for Fiore Musicale. What else have I got for you? Well, I'm going to move on to Terry Dingwall now. Let me tell you about Terry. He's a poet, and he knows it, and he wrote a book. And this is the book. It's called The Tome of Ding, Poems. He was born in the Seychelles, brought up in colonial Kenya during the time of the Mau Mau emergency, emigrated to New Zealand after Kenya's independence, served 20 years in the Royal New Zealand Air Force as an avionics technician, immigrated to Australia, and lives with his partner Susan in Doonside, Western Sydney. And he's got a couple of kids, one son and two daughters. Anyway, he's a lovely fella, and I met him down there at Tamworth Country Music Festival at the poetry competition. And then he came up here. I actually came here first. Then he went down to Tamworth, and then he came back here on last week for Wednesday. Poetry night. Amazing, hey? Because he came through Sunday, and then he came back on Wednesday. Now he's gone back to where he came from, which is Doonside down there. But he left me a copy of his book here, The Tome of Ding. And I've selected some of them, and I'm going to read them to you tonight, because he said I could. But not only that, he's suggested a few that I do. And this is not one he suggested, but I thought I'd do it anyway. Socialism by Terry Dingwall. Now, before I read this out, I must say that any of the political opinions expressed in any of the poetry that I read out are not necessarily my political opinions, nor the political opinions of the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame, which can't have any political opinions because it's actual non-entity, it's not a human, it can't even think. So, yeah. So even when I read out his socialist stuff, it doesn't mean I endorse it. And when I read out this one about socialism, it doesn't mean I endorse it. What I do endorse is you doing your own research and finding out the benefits and the evils of all systems, capitalist, socialist, communist, etc. Socialism by Terry Dingwall. Why is it so trendy, uni-wise, to speak of the socialist paradise? A place where we are all assured all wealth is shared for common good. A state will give us all our food, will run the farms and pay for roads. The state will give us all a bed, give us clothes, keep us fed. It will give us all we need, except it's funny, it won't give us any money. To each according to his needs, they interpret as eat more seeds. Every year the choice is hearty. Vote all you want for the only party. Your hard work will earn your share of sweat and blood, but do not dare to think hard work will earn more pay, as lazy sods all get equal say. If you dare show discontent, it's the gulag holiday for punishment. Lecturer talks of sharing money. You can't share theirs, so f*** you, sonny. If you favour a workers' revolution, Pol Pot had a real good solution. He removed the scourge of his nation, those with academic education. Lenin and Stalin did it best, shooting all those that thought to protest. Heed the Red Book of Mao Zedong. Have academics outspreading dung? So uni nuts, learn from real history, or your own fate will be a mystery. Next one by Terry Dingwall. Rain. The sky is pressing down in shades of lifeless grey. The land begins to drown as rain the grass blades sway. The birds in treetops huddle. We pray to see the sun. But all we see are puddles of mud, so dull and brown. The trees reach out in joy to suck the moisture down. For every girl and boy it's time to play and clown. Mums say, take a brolly. Dads say, wear your gummies. It's every parent's folly to help prevent what fun is. Soon as kids round the corner, they stamp in muddy splashes till soaked in muddy water from ankles to eyelashes. They know they shouldn't ought to scream and make a fuss, but those are not screams of terror, but cheerful alto voices. The kids are just rejoicing, making mud pies in the mire, their happy giggles voicing joy and happiness entire. Oh, the fuss and hassle when bath time comes around. It takes a lot of muscle to soap the little buggers down. Why so averse to water when it's time to have a bath? when it is so much better to just hose them on the path. Why not? Hose them down. Yep. All right, we got the next one by Terry Dingwall, Front Ear. While on my way to Venus, from a quick trip to Mars, I had a stroke of genius while contemplating stars. Why not leave a message for some traveller to find, a spaceman on a passage with boredom on his mind? I would put it in a Coke can and cast it into space, spinning like a ceiling fan and sealed with masking tape. Who would find this object and open it with care? I wrote a careful subject so as not to give a scare. Greetings from an earthling. I hope this makes your day. It's just a little message from a bloke from far away. It happened sometime later, 100 years in fact, the speeding lunar freighter was in the window whacked. It pierced the cockpit window and entered in first class. It hit the Venusian Presidento. It looked like a pile of grass. It really made the green bits fly and splattered globs of dirt, bounced into its compound eye. Gosh, I bet it really hurt. It gave an awful hiss of rage and twice wiggled its antenna. It had lost its Facebook page about three earthlings and a dunny. It read my little message and really took it all to heart. Thus 'twas on this passage the planetary war did start. So do not get your old junk and chuck it into space, the lowly Coke that you last drunk. Put it someplace safe. Yes, don't litter space. Now this was the one that Terry wanted me to read out, and it's called The Shepherd. And it's the Anzac invasion of Gallipoli from the perspective of a Turkish shepherd. The Shepherd by Terry Dingwall. My flock bleats gently in the night. My village steeped in slothful slumber. The stars above gleam faint and bright. I do hear the far-off peal of thunder. I hope this means a chance of rain as I missed that. I'm just going to start this again. The Shepherd by Terry Dingwall. My flock bleats gently in the night, my village steeped in slothful slumber. The stars above gleam faint and bright. Do I hear the peal of far-off thunder? I hope this means a chance of rain as I hear distant whip-like cracks. Does the earth split and cry again? Voices are raised. A night attack? Anzacs on our coast at dawn? Flash and thunder of the gun is heard. The morning grey of mist is torn. Let fly the flock, drive off the herd. Why come they here with gun in hand? Brothers, sisters, spread the word. These men wish to take our land. What do they hope to find out here? It's rough rock, scrub and sand, pine trees green amid the grass all sere. You're drafted. Take this rifle, run! My heart beats, my mouth is dry. Dust smothering in the rising sun, contemplating doubt, I coast towards fly. If I must fight, then fight I must, for you must be driven out by blood. We will both sprinkle in the dust. Who will be the swimmer in the flood? Who will remain in years to come, returning hence to this lonely place, to play the bugle's mournful tone, while listening to a prayer of grace? I see them now, fleet of dark-hulled boats, floating in a sea of splashes. Hurrying figures leap like goats, dodging amidst the bangs and flashes. I, who last night herded sheep, in a nightmare, handing out the slaughter to fellow herders of the fleece, hurrying landwards through the water. Powerful poem, Terry Dingwall, from the Tome of Ding, poems by Terry Dingwall, and that is, The Shepherd. All right, I'm into the home stretch now, and I've got a few more announcements. So here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame, not only do we take cash and credit if you want to donate, you can also donate via PayPal and crypto. We accept Bitcoin and Satoshi and XRP and Solo, as in Solargenic. So they're all the coins that we currently take. And if you look in the link below, you will see the donation links to those places. So check it out. All right, last of them off, but not least, we've got Rosemary Dobson here and a couple of her poems from this fantastic release published in 1970 by the University of Queensland Press. These are a series of records that they put out with the poem reading on them and the accompanying book in there. So not only do you get the vinyl record, you get the poets poetry here. The Country Press by Rosemary Dobson. Under the dusty print of hobnailed boot, strewn on the floor, the papers still assert in ornamental Gothic, swash italics and bands of printers' flowers, traditional, mixed in a riot of typographic fancy. This is the Western Star, the Farmer's Guide, and the voice of progress for the Dingwall district. Page proofs of double spread with running headlines paper the walls, and sets of cigarette cards where Pooter-bossomed showgirls still display the charms that dazzled in the 1900s through gaping slats, latticed with the sun, the ivory tendrils fall, twining the disused platen thrust away under a pall of dust in 1920. Draw up a chair, sit down, just shift the galleys. You say you have a notice? There's no one dies, but what we know about it, births, deaths and marriages. Council reports, wool prices, river heights, the itinerant poem and the classified ads. They all come homeward to the Western Star. Joe's our typesetter. Meet Joe Burrell. Joe's a promising lad, and Joe, mere 47, peers from a tennis shade and smiling vaguely, competes the headline for the Baptist school. The dance, the smoko and the children's picnic. Down by the river flats beneath the willows, they all come homewards, and Joe sets them all between the morning and the midday schooner. Oh, western star, that bringest all to fold, the yarding sails, the champion short-horn bull, and William's pain-relieving liniment. When I shall die, set me up close against my fellow men. Cheer that cold column-headed deaths with flowers, or mix me up with births and marriages. Surround the tragic statement of my death with euchre drives and good times had by all. That, with these warm concomitants of life, jostled and cheered in lowercase italics, I shall go homewards in the Western Star. Okay. The last one for the evening that I've got for you tonight is by Rosemary Dobson. It's the Rape of Europa, and it's about Greek mythology where Europa was taken away by Zeus or Jupiter, depending on where you're looking at it from, whether it's Roman or Greek. And anyway, beautiful Europa, while the billy boils, under the she oaks, underneath the willows, underneath the sky like a bent bow of silver, like the arms of a god embracing a mortal. Beautiful Europa has set out a picnic. All her father's paddocks that slope to the water are singing with runnels and freshets of crystal, and the voice of the river is loud as it plunges. By borders of granite and shouldering basalt, on a spit of white sand, she's boiling the billy. The cattle come down to the sand by the river. Europa is plaiting green willows and buttercups, daisies and waterweeds. Mocking, she crowns them with wreaths and festoons, with dripping green garlands, and climbs to the back of the dark one, the leader. Europa, Europa, the billy is boiling. Down from the wool sheds your brothers come riding. There's a splash in the shallows, a swirl of a commotion. He has left, he is swept in the rush of the current, and the rivers draw rain on the hillside astounded. Oh, wave to Europa, for far she's faring. Past farmyard and homestead, past township and jetty, and many will say that they saw them go riding, and girl and the bull on the back of the river down to the harbour and over the ocean. And distant indeed are the coasts of that country, where the god was revealed in splendour and ardour. Europa, Europa, as you lay quiet, in sunshine and shadow, under a plane tree, did you remember the river, the she oaks? All right. Well, that's it for me from Chillin Tuesday here on the 30th of January 2024. Don't forget to like it, give it a comment in the underneath there. Tell me who you like and which poem you like tonight. And don't forget the description below where you can find out more about the Australian Film Contest and our merchandise. Hey, I'm Thundercloud, washing away the garbage, leaving rainbows after rains. I'll see you tomorrow night for Wednesday Words here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. Boom! See you later.